Okay, I had to put Yao on the list. He's an honorable mention, okay? So it's not even like I'm really ranking Yao Ming on this, but he did have a big effect on the game in China. Granted, I think Stephon Marbury went over to China and played in the CBA before Yao Ming came over, and he had a lot to do with the NBA's popularity in China. I think a lot of prosperity has come to the NBA by way of China. I think we noticed that with the Daryl Morey tweet and the 10-cent deal being ruined. If you don't know what 10 cent is, this is sort of a weird lesson to start. We're talking about Yao Ming and his impact on the NBA and talk about 10 cent. Basically, one of the biggest revenue generating things for the NBA is a deal with Chinese media company 10 cent and then their local broadcasting to televise NBA games. And Yao had a lot to do with the popularity of basketball in not only China, but Taiwan and the Philippines. So I really wanted to shout him out in this. He was also an all-star. Every year he was in the NBA. Has anyone else done that? No, they haven't. So that is the greatest thing that Yao Ming has ever done. There is no statue of him. There's no statue of Yao Ming in China. I thought surely someone's made a statue, you know. I feel like they like to celebrate their leaders. I've been over there. I've seen a few statues. But it doesn't seem. Anytime you look for a statue of Yao Ming, they're just Madame Tussauds Wax Museum renditions of Yao. An interesting thing about Yao, though, is he had a very short career. So he only played 8 years in the league, but he played 5 years for the Shanghai Sharks. So he was a big CBA player before he came over and played in America. Sort of like an Arvydas Sabonis situation. But also, his career was cut short. Obviously, he's 7'6", he's huge. Those guys don't have particularly long careers, but all things considered, he actually had a really long career. And from what I've gathered, he had to play for the Chinese national team. He made the quarterfinals in the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. So he felt a lot of pressure to play for his national team in whatever type of international competitions arose. So a lot of people say that's why maybe he could have had a better NBA career if he didn't have so much international expectations. Do I know that? No, I just heard that. I heard that once. A girl that I went to school with, this was in middle school, she was a Chinese exchange student named Tina. Wasn't her real name. I don't know if every school does this in America, but at our school we would anglicize people that foreign exchange students. Would give them names like Jimmy and Fred and Tina when they had their own real Chinese names. But her name was Tina. She wore Rockets gear every day to school. You wouldn't have looked at her and thought she was particularly a basketball fan, but they rock with Yao. So the honorable mention. Steph is in here. Steph is a impactful NBA player. I have to put him in here mainly because the unbreakable all-time three-point record. I think it was James Harden who recently said, oh, you're the second most in all-time scoring. He's like, yeah, but like I think he said something like, yeah, I'm the first because Steph doesn't count, which I like because I kind of knew what he was saying. He's kind of saying, yeah, but like Steph sort of exists beyond human capabilities. It's an impossible thing I could never reach. I wouldn't even never set my goal to outdo Steph Curry's all-time three-point record. That would be foolish, which I liked. I like James Harden. I think he's funny. The only unanimous MVP, right? No one's in the MVP voting how they do it. You vote like you give 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. Basically, everyone said their first place vote was Steph Curry, which has never been done. And will it happen again? I don't think so. Also, him shattering his all-time three-pointers in a season record. So, I believe it was 2015-2016, the year he was the unanimous MVP. The previous year, he had broke the all-time three-point record in a season with 286. And then the following year, he beat it with 402. I love Steph Curry. One of my favorite players. And it sucks to see him on a bad basketball team. Trade Steph Curry for himself. Bill Russell. So Bill Russell makes this list, and the OGs, I love them, I respect them. I actually really like Bill Russell. He seems like the sweetest guy, and by all accounts, he was awesome. By all accounts, he was really cool. And also, apparently, Star Trek fan. Like, huge Trekkie. I think he's one of the OG NBA star dorks. But RIP, awesome guy. 11-time champion. Again, this was at the time, I believe there were only 8 teams in the NBA, so things were different back then. There were some guys, the level of competition was different. Again, this was a bit of the plumbers and, actuaries in the offseason guys that were playing in the league. So he did dominate, uncomparable levels of domination. 11-time champion, 5-time MVP. This was before there were finals MVPs. This was before they were even recording blocks. So we don't even know how many blocks he was getting a game. 21-0 in elimination games through Olympics, college, and NBA. Isn't that kind of interesting? 21-0. 8 consecutive championships. All-time record for rebounds per game, 22.5. Again, people weren't shooting very much, so there were a lot more rebounds to be had because there were a lot more bricks. 51 rebounds in a single game. Is that the most in a single game? It's not. You'll see. Do I want to say anything else about him? He's probably the all-time blocks leader. They just didn't record him. First black coach in the NBA. Did you know that? And it's sort of hard to prove what the word major means, but people say that he was actually the first black coach in major league sports. Thought that was kind of interesting. So, also first boycott of an NBA game in 1961. They did an exhibition game in Louisville, Kentucky. Apparently, some of the black players on the Celtics weren't allowed to stay at the hotel because of their race. So, Bill Russell and a bunch of players on the St. Louis Hawks and the Boston Celtics boycotted the game. Impactful, culturally impactful. I think there's more. I think Bill Russell, I think also he was part of the decision. I've heard him talk about it when MLK was assassinated, whether they were going to play the game that was scheduled for that day. Ultimately, I believe they did decide to play. And Bill Russell, I remember him saying, I actually don't know if that was the right move. I thought that was kind of interesting. To be so thoughtful that you'd look back on it and say, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they wish they hadn't played. Wilt Chamberlain's on here above it's mainly because he was the first household name in the NBA. And the reason that's important is because basically making the NBA something that people recognize, like the MLB, like the NFL, where people, I don't think like hockey's done that, right? Like I don't think hockey, you got Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey. I think that sort of did something culturally in America for people like me. But he broke through to the mainstream where people knew him. People turned on games to watch Wilt Chamberlain average 48.5 minutes a game. In 1962, he averaged 48.5 minutes a game. That means the games were going into overtime. He was literally playing extra time. And again, this was a different time. It was a different time. It's sort of hard to compare. That's why I'm saying the most impactful. Because can you compare, he's the GOAT, he's the best. Like, what does that even mean? Wilt Chamberlain, if Wilt Chamberlain were to play like DeMarcus Cousins right now, DeMarcus Cousins would destroy him. So what are we doing? Why would, you can't compare it. DeMarcus Cousins, guy playing in Puerto Rico right now, would destroy Wilt Chamberlain in his prime. In my opinion, again, I wasn't there, but I watched clips. You watch these guys play and the level of skill has gone up. So it's sort of, to compare who is the most skilled player of all time isn't fair. So that's why I'm talking about impactful. Led the league, of course, highest scoring game of all time, 100 points. No evidence, sadly, right? That's what I always say. I'm like, there's a radio broadcast of it, but sadly there's like no footage of it. So there's part of me that's a little bit like, 100 points? Again, a lot of them were free throws from what I understand. Also, he shot those free throws. Free throws? Underhand. Kobe Bryant. I put him at 7. And the thing is, Kobe doesn't really have anything where he did anything no one else has ever done. But he did a lot of things very well. 12-time All-Defense, 2-time Finals MVP, 5-time champion, 4th in all-time scoring. Just an incredible resume. And again, another player who, sort of like Yao, actually brought popularity up for the NBA to China, because he actually made a trip to China every year. He made an effort to learn the language, and if you go to Asia, probably, besides Yao, probably the most popular player across the world, I would assume. And that's important when we're talking about impact of basketball. So, and he also competed in the dunk contest, and he won, which I respect and I like, because it's a very culturally important thing about the NBA that no one cares about anymore. And that sucks, because I think it had a lot to do with the spectacle of professional sports and what that has, the joy we get from professional sports. And Kobe took that seriously, Michael Jordan took that seriously, and I love them because they took it seriously. We can move on from Kobe. Larry Bird. Okay, mainly Larry Bird. I put him in here because of the obviously great player, 3-time champion, 2 times Finals MVP, 3-time most valuable player, great run. Sort of like Kobe, where he did a lot of great things very well, but did he do anything? Did he set any records? Is there any something I can point at to say, hey, no one's ever done that? Not really, but he played in 31 finals games. In 1984, he averaged 27 points, 14 rebounds per game in the finals. He did everything, because he was 3-time All-Defense, and then also averaged 10 rebounds a game for his career and 6 assists. So he was just, it sounds kind of funny to say, but he was sort of the LeBron before LeBron. But and the 50-40-90 club, something I attribute a lot of weight to. I think he might have been the first player to do it. 50% on field goals, 40% on 3, and 90% from the free throw line. What was his career averages? I thought I put him on here. 49 field goal percentage, 37% from 3-point, 88 from the free throw line. So I think he was one of the first players who was efficient and made shots before the time where we were looking at advanced stats and saying who's the most efficient. Now you can't, if you put up 40 points but your field goal percentage is 40%, your 3-point percentage is 30%, people will mock you. That's a laughable stat line, even though you got 40 points. So Larry took efficiency seriously before everyone else, is sort of what I would say. Also, the most watched college basketball game of all time, 1979 national championship between Indiana State with Larry Bird and Michigan State with Irvin Johnson. I thought that was pretty cool. That I found in my research. Also, 3-time NBA 3-point competition winner. I didn't even put that in my notes. I just saw that on his career highlights and awards. I like Larry Bird. I'm also from Indiana. I grew up there, so I'm a little soft spot. I saw him coach for the Pacers once at an exhibition game. I was a child. Shaq. Okay, so Shaq, again, not a player where it's like, dude, Shaq did this. Here's what Shaq did. They had to create the defensive 3-second rule because of Shaq, because Shaq would sort of camp out in the paint and it got boring. So they had to change the rule for him. People say that. I gave it to him. I added in green because a lot of people attribute it to him. So I wanted to add more green to my slide too. 58% from field goal range for his career. A lot of easy twos, a lot of dunks. 15-time All-Star, 14-time All-NBA, averaged 35.9 points, 15.2 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks per game in the 2000 finals. Has to be one of the most impressive stat lines in NBA finals history. It is. Why not? Give me a better stat line. I'm sure Michael Jordan's is better, and I probably have him coming up. So 9th in all-time scoring, 15th in all-time rebounding, and 8th in all-time blocks. So that is going to put the only really downside, I should have put in red, only one league MVP. Again, I don't know. You would think a guy that's 5th all-time would have more MVPs. That's his only downside. Again, I think he thinks Steve Nash should give him 2 of them. So he thinks he should have 3. I think Steve Nash deserved those MP3s. Talking too fast. So Magic Johnson is 4. The biggest thing for Magic Johnson for me, won the finals in 1980. The year he was his rookie year. The year he was drafted was 1979, but he won in 1980, and he was the finals MVP as a rookie. Anyone ever done that before? Nope, just Magic Johnson. 5-time champion. That's the same amount as Kobe, but 3 times finals MVP. That's 1 more than Kobe. 3-time MVP, 3 times more than Kobe. Why am I comparing him to Kobe? I don't know. But who else has 3 MVPs? Jokic? Probably, I don't know, I'm forgetting someone. Then, yeah, just career cut short, unfortunately, because of the HIV virus, and people just didn't know that much about it at the time. So it is sort of unfortunate because people just weren't aware of how it was transmitted. So he retired pretty quickly just because, you know, he also didn't know how it was going to affect him, if playing basketball was going to make it worse. What's actually really interesting to me is he came back and he played on the Dream Team, I want to say would have been 1994? Help me out here. Or was it 1990? So I remember he was going to come out of retirement, and he did play on the Dream Team, and then he was going to play the following year, and then just decided to not come back to the NBA. And I find these people's careers who sort of left and came back to be pretty interesting, because we don't really know what Magic Johnson could have been. He also played center as a point guard in Game 6 of that 1980s finals. As a rookie, had 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. And again, he was in that most watched NCAA championship of all time with Larry Bird. I didn't realize their rivalry had started that early. Really great basketball story. Magic Johnson, thank you for your service. Actually, when I made this list, I'd forgotten about Kareem, so that's why Yao was in the honorable mention, because I had to shift him out, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you could argue that he actually does have the best resume of all time, just because of 6 championships and 2 finals MVPs and 6 most valuable players. Jordan had 5, so he has he has 1 more MVP than Michael Jordan, same amount of championships, but 4 less finals MVPs. More all-time scoring, 2nd in all-time blocks, 2nd in all-time scoring, 6th in all-time rebounds. He has a really impressive resume. The interesting thing, though, is I read a lot of Chuck Holsterman, and Kareem sort of comes up a lot, and what people say about him is that people just didn't really like him. No one was like a big Kareem fan. Just personality-wise, he's quieter, very religious guy, didn't have much of a personality, kind of had a bad attitude at times out on the court, and I remember him talking about him retiring, and people were just sort of like an obligatory, like, oh yeah, he's retiring, but no one cried like a woman. That's my Phil Leotardo impression. So, only lost 2 games in college. Did you know that? I thought that was worthy of slide, right? He was in his prime before the DPOY award, so he has no Defensive Player of the Year awards. I think it started in '78. I could be wrong, but when he would have been winning those Defensive Player of the Year awards. Okay, I ran out of memory on my laptop, so that's what happened there. But we're back. And I think I've talked about Kareem won the finals MVP at the age of 38. Sorry, I've lost my boner for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I'm ready to move on. LeBron. Okay, so first in all-time scoring. Basically, the reason LeBron is, I would say, number 2 overall. It sucks to say, but Michael Jordan winning 6 championships in 8 years, and then leaving the game those 2 years. It's hard to really... Michael Jordan's better, in my opinion. And it's sort of an emotional reaction, right? Scientifically, could I explain it? Could I mathematically explain it? No. So this is purely opinion, just when I think about it. LeBron has had a great career. First in all-time scoring, first in all-time minutes. He's going to finish with the most games played. Right now it's Robert Parrish, but he's going to finish. And then he holds basically all of the playoff records. He has most assists, most rebounds, most points, and he's had it for a very long time. So everything sort of points to LeBron as the greatest player of all time. 10 finals appearances, has won a championship on every team he played for, averaging 27 points per game in the playoffs. He's going to have the longest career of all time. But, I mean, he's going to be a 21-time All-Star. He's making the All-Star team this year. But 4 championships isn't enough. And I hate saying that. 4 MVPs. He also never won a DPOY. Not that it really matters. Again, these are accolades that other people give. This is validation from other people. So I don't think that's quite fair. But when I look at it as the big picture, the big problem is in what, year 22, in 4 championships is great. It's just not 6. And there are players who had more championships. And granted, LeBron played in a tougher era. Even thinking about Bill Russell, there were only 8 teams in the league. So it sucks because LeBron is great, but Michael Jordan is just better. Michael Jordan never got an NBA Cup MVP, though. I take it back. LeBron's number 1. I'm kidding. LeBron's one of my favorite players of all time, but I used to be a bronzexual. Now Nikola Jokic is my favorite player. And I say this because when Laker games are on, like, I don't necessarily have to watch them, but when Nuggets games are on, like, I get so excited to watch Jokic play. And if Jokic was sitting out those couple games because he had the flu or something, I didn't watch those Nuggets games. It was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, I'll watch something else. I'll watch a different game, or I'll watch like The Wire or something like that. So, yeah, I love you, LeBron, but I think it's over. And Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. 6 times Finals MVP. No one's ever done that. 10 times scoring title. He's the best. How many times all defense? Defensive player of the year. Again, no one else on this list has been a defensive player of the year. And he was a 9-time first team all defense. LeBron, I think he was like 5-time? Yeah. So 6-time all defense. 1 time was second team all defense. Man, 2-time slam dunk contest. Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. 5-time MVP. He just did more in a shorter period of time, but I also respect the length of time that LeBron has done it. But I just look at it and I say, man, Michael Jordan is basketball. He embodies greatness in sports and in basketball. Is he the greatest athlete of all time? Again, greatness, this is, you can't really quantify greatness, but when I look at it and I say, who really sticks out as the all-time, the way we look back on history now, again, in 300, 400 years, I don't think people will really talk about Michael Jordan. I think we'll all be dust. Sorry. I don't know. Or we'll live in space. So, yeah, Michael Jordan's my favorite player. Again, not a particularly happy, joyful person. Do I envy Michael Jordan? Not really. But he was a great basketball player. He was a great competitor. So, much love to Michael Jordan. I think that's all I have to say about him. I think that's all I have to say about everything. I have to edit this down because of that weird glitch in my computer. So, be good to your mothers. Eat a corn dog.